Hello and welcome to my presentation on the Dunder-Mifflin Paper Company and evaluating them based on the fraud risk management principles. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I did watch The Office in high school. And I feel like there's no subject matter there, so bear with me. So the first fraud risk management factor is fraud risk governance, how well the board of directors and senior management commit to high integrity and working to manage fraud. So the board of directors, I can't really remember any of them other than David Wallace, who's pictured there in the tan suit. And from what I saw of him, he seemed to care about the controls and told Michael when things were unacceptable. So I rated his fraud risk governance to be acceptable. Michael Scott, on the other hand, in the black suit, I rated his fraud risk governance to be poor. This is because he never took trainings or rules seriously. For example, sexual harassment and discrimination training, he did not take seriously. There were inappropriate relationships in the office. He trusted his employees so much that he probably didn't feel that there was a need for controls. Many of his employees were not always productive. So he wasn't a strong leader in that way. So for fraud risk assessment, now we're identifying and assessing fraud risk relevant to the organization. These are the three that I think have medium to high likelihood of occurring and medium to high significance on the company. The significance just depending on the scale of the fraud. So misappropriation of assets is the first one that comes to mind. We learned in the case of disappearing ink that ink cartridges are expensive and toner and they have high retail value. So there's a possibility that there's a printer at Dunder-Mifflin, and these printers are either being used for personal benefit or stolen. There's also some petty cash that Kevin admits to stealing in one of the episodes. So there's cash on hand, which also presents an inherent risk. And then payroll fraud. All the employees in the office went out together, some had romantic relationships. So collusion was definitely possible in this work environment. And with the episode where Jim and Dwight clued to create a fake salesperson, Lloyd Gross, in order to avoid the sales commission cap. There's also an episode where Cree creates a fictitious employee to get another paycheck. So this is definitely prevalent for this company. Kickbacks and bribery. This is not really shown in the show at all, but since it's a sales job, I feel like this is an inherent risk that the salesman could be accepting bribes or kickbacks from customers or vendors. So, since this appropriation of assets seems to be the highest risk or most prevalent to the company, these are some ways that we can mitigate this risk of misappropriation of assets at Dunder-Mifflin. So, fiscal controls for petty cash. So, in the episode where Kevin says that he stole the petty cash from a cash jar, he told Roy that Oscar keeps a key for the petty cash jar behind his computer. So instead of a petty cash jar, they can put the money in a safe with a more secure password that's monitored by a camera, possibly checked weekly to make sure that no one's stolen from it. Regular inventory counts, especially for items of especially high value, like the ink cartridges, maybe some warehouse machinery, maybe regular or surprise inventory counts. And then the promotion of an ethical culture, a hotline where people can anonymously report fraud, and just a culture of we have integrity here. If you work here, you need to have integrity. The third fraud risk management principle is fraud control activities. These are some that would help the company mitigate their risks and if they felt that they were really implementing them. It's hard to tell from a TV show, but it doesn't seem like separation of duties was correctly implemented because even Jim and Dwight, salespeople, were able to create fictitious employees, although I don't really remember the episode, so it could be there, but I'm going to say no. Fiscal controls are there with the lockbox for the petty cash, but they're not effective since people know where the key is. And I thought that they could have a conflict of interest policy to avoid the bribes and kickbacks. And this policy could require employees to disclose potential conflicts. There isn't one in the TV show to my limited knowledge. And then regular reviews of like the number of employees, access to systems would be good for the company, and this would help them discover when there are fictitious employees and that kind of thing. I said that they probably do have this because I think they did find out about the fictitious employees. Obviously, we need more information in a real life scenario, but I'm going to say that they did have that. And then fraud investigation and corrective action. This is making sure the company develops and implements a system to review and correct these actions. They probably need to designate a team to handle investigations and maybe internal audits, which they don't seem to have. They need to set up an employee hotline. There definitely should be the one there where they would take these leads and investigate them. And with regards to corrective action, there needs to be clear disciplinary measures that are enforced and communicated. This definitely is not in the show, as we can see Creed, Jim, Kevin, and other people who are doing shady activities were never fired or even really disciplined that I knew of. Lastly, fraud risk management monitoring activities. So in the case of petty cash, if we had a safe, we regularly change the password or just ensure that that password hasn't been compromised, making sure once that hotline is implemented that people still know about it and that it's still active, people can call it. And maybe even rotating who does inventory counts to avoid collusion, which seems to be a big risk in this company. Overall, just assessing the systems, making sure they're working. And that's my fraud risk management assessment of the company. So I hope that that covered everything, was accurate to the show.